Hello, sports fans. Mauricio here. Well, I wanted to give a video just getting used to SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. So we're using this SSMS to write our queries and create our tables and put in our keys and make our data model by linking the tables with the primary and foreign keys. And so we do a lot of work with SSMS, but it's not the entirety of the SQL Server database software, which is huge. So this is our window into using the database, and there's a ton more that the serious DBA would need to learn about this, plus similar programs such as PowerShell. But here you go. So you have to have a database, and you might be setting up your system with localhost, installing your own version of SSMS, and then click database and create a new database. And that can be done. That's not my specialty. I just use accounts that admin people give me, but I'll try to put a video together about that. But you'll probably find something faster on YouTube already. You have to write some command line code to create a database on your hard drive or whatever your storage device is. So I'm not covering that here, but you can make a new database. But if you have your own database, like I do, you can use it. And so the first thing to do is, if you are assigned a database, is to find it, and it'll probably be mixed in with a bunch of other people's. But you have your way to log on, and I suppose we can even back that out as well. So I just click connect here. And so I did that too fast, but there was a server, and you may have to put in a server name, and you would be either assigned Windows authentication, which means you don't need a password. It's passed in from when you log into your probably work computer, or a DBA can give you a password. Anyway, I'm going to open my database. So it's a cute little cylinder. A cylinder is the image of a database. You can humor yourself if you want and just type in old hard drives. There were these drums, 40-pound drums, and they look like a cylinder, and that's what a database looks like. That's at least what the icon looks like. So you're going to make tables, and so I've been making lots of tables, and we're starting to move into this. We have products table and you have customers table. So you open the table, and if you were writing code, you would click on the columns and you would make a new query, which is just a query window or a code window. And you could drag columns over, and don't worry about the brackets. It doesn't mean anything. By the way, brackets are optional, except if you have a space in your column name, then they're mandatory. So just so I don't have to remember, I don't use spaces in my column names. But you work with your tables just by opening them up and working with the columns, and then writing code or whatever you're working on in this window. So a query is a question of a database, but we're also going to use this query window to do inserts, updates, and deletes. And that is not a query. A query is when you receive data back. So that's a misnomer, but this is the window you use to write code, and we'll talk about that for a minute. So this is a database. All right, so that's the name of my database, and in your database you have many tables. So one database, many tables. And so if we look at one of the tables, when you create the table, you can do it in design mode. So if you wanted to change something with your database, if you wanted to create your database, you would do that in design mode. Just again for the record, once you save this thing, you can't see it. It's not automatic, so you do have to go back to your database and refresh that. So once you add new things, a new trigger, a new stored procedure, a new database table, you have to manually refresh so that it's in the list of whatever you're working on. So when you make a table, you specify the columns that go across the page, and they all need their data type. And right now, they're all allowing nulls except the primary key. And the data types are very important to think through. So a data type, for example, last purchase, date, time. So the superiority of a database is that if you typed in a name or a little story, Mary had a little lamb, the database would say, hey, that's not what I wanted. I need a date. So data integrity is greatly improved by restricting what can go in each column. So that's why it's better than Excel. So tables have columns. So you make your table, and then I recommend close the window. Make it, do your work, close the window. So this is not like a web browser. You have 15 windows open and you just switch back and forth. No. Use it, close it. Use it, close it. Oh, we don't agree with you. All right, well, you may suffer. You can get caught in a catch-22, and especially if you're changing columns or putting in foreign keys and such, you really can get in a catch-22 where you just can't fix whatever. So use a tab, close a tab. So you make the table, but can you type in data with that? No. But before we go forward again, tools, options, designers. If you need to change anything, you have to take off that little checkbox, or else you'll get an error message that says you can't. So we just covered tables and columns. So let's go look at the rows of data. So if I wanted to just select the data, I would look at it. Edit is very similar. It selects the data and you can change it. So I don't normally use select, or maybe sometimes, but I just bring it up in edit mode so that I could just make changes if I felt like it. And you just click off the row and then to make changes. So these are the columns that we created, and that should match the columns in this customers table. So these are the records. So I have 7 records, and how many columns? So the records are considered a tall table or a short table, and the number of columns is a wide table or a narrow table. So that's tables, records, and columns. And coming back here, we have a primary key which uniquely identifies every row. So you just create primary key. And if you are saving records, you may want to restrict the products in a table to values in another table. So we're going to restrict the product ID in this sales table to pre-existing products. That would make sense. You can't sell what's a bogus product. So that's a foreign key. And so you create tables, and then you set up the keys way before you put in any data. So relationships, and there's another video about that. But you have tables, you set up the columns, you set up the primary and foreign keys, you set up a default values, and you set up identity fields. By the way, only the primary key can be identity field. This particular table has a composite primary key covered elsewhere. So this can't have a auto number field. We handle that in code. But anyway, you have a design mode. So you have a design where you set up the tables, and then you close that window. And then you might want to edit and type in some rows, and then you close that window. And then you might want to write some code. So you close the window, and you might want to write some code. Insert table name, and then list of columns, and then keyword values. And by the way, it's off the screen, but I didn't set up, which database to work on. So you have to, well, it's a good habit to put your database name at the top so it knows where to run the code. And so you would write, so in the design mode, you can't write code. In the edit mode, you can't write code. If you want to write code, you have to make a new query and then just start writing code. And this isn't a stored procedure, but usually you write the query and then test out your code, and then you would turn it into a stored procedure. And the strange thing about that, is that you would click the execute button. I'm sorry, that's off screen. You would click the execute button to save the stored procedure. So we have the design view, we have the edit view. We write code in a screen like this, and in a screen like this, we also turn it into a stored procedure. Now, in the same screen at the end, you can say, oh, you added a row. All right, so then let me go see if that row was actually saved. So you can have more than one query in the design, in the code window, and you can just run the code that you have highlighted. If you don't have anything highlighted, then it'll run all the code when you hit the execute button. So you could run whatever code is highlighted. You have to make sure that you don't have anything highlighted when you execute, because it'll just say, no, we don't know what that is. So this is SSMS. This is, you've probably gotten this far. You have a database that was assigned to you. So you start by creating tables. You go to your table and new table. So you start by creating tables. You can, later on, will import data and create tables by importing Excel data and things like that. But this is SSMS. Create tables and then edit them to type in data. Or maybe you write code, you write SQL code in another window. So you use different windows for different things. So just use it, create it, close it. I would recommend that you save, file save, and save it into your database. And also, if you have an external place to save, I would save it also. Some of these systems get wiped by administrators, so you could lose your code. So you want to back up your code. Well, so in this class, we're creating the tables, we're linking them with foreign keys and primary keys, and then we're working with SQL code to insert and then sooner or later update and delete code and fun things like that. Then we're going to turn into stored procedures and then run those stored procedures, execute them, and then we'll put a wrapper around all of that called the web page, and we'll use the web page to call the stored procedures that manipulate the data that's typed in by the program user and then pushes all the changes back to the database. So, so there's your intro to SSMS and its concepts. So we're writing code. We're practicing writing code, and when we like our code, you turn it into a stored procedure, and the stored procedures live in their own little programmability folder, stored procedures. It's good to have some type of naming convention. There's no folders in here that I know how to create, so you kind of put them all together in one section by starting them all with the same name. The startup may be a little difficult. There's wonderful videos online to get you going. Everything gets a lot easier after about 5 or 10 hours of playing around. And I hope you enjoy the content and persevere. Take care.